Okay, so as you are not telling me your problem, so let me start my discussion. Huh? Yes. So we are dealing with the standard trade model, right? And the community. For that part, we are discussing about the community indifference curve. Hmm. So this is the thing we are going to start from here. So autarky equilibrium of the home country. So as I said, the standard trade model is a bit relaxation from the Ricardo model. So in Ricardo, we assume that labor, that means unit labor requirement, these are constant, and the opportunity cost of producing one commodity for another, this is also constant, that's way. So that is why the slope of the ppf was constant and the ppf was a downward sloping straight line. But here we relax that assumption and we are saying that no, it's not like that. You can change. Look, this is the assumption. Where it is? Yes, the opportunity cost is increasing, and so the slope is concave for the PPF. So here we have the concave PPF for the home country. Okay. Now, if there is no scope of exchange, that means you cannot export, you cannot import. So in that case, whatever you have produced, you have to consume. So in the autarky, what you have done, this green line is the price slope actually, and this is the social indifference curve or the community indifference curve. Okay, someone, there are so many people who are calling this as a community indifference curve and some are calling them as a social indifference curve. So whatever it is, so this is your social indifference curve and it is tangent with your ppf at the point E. Okay, so if you make a tangent, this is a straight line, this shows the price line, we all know that. So this price py by px, this is nothing but the autarky price. Okay, autarky price ratio. And E is the autarky equilibrium. So what is the speciality of this E? At E, your production for X and Y is equal to your consumption of X and Y. Okay? So whatever you are producing, you have to consume it for X and for Y. So this is the position for the autarky. This is the case for home country, and this is the case for the foreign country. We assume that foreign country's ppf is a bit steeper. This is just to make it match with a Ricardo. Okay, just to make a similar thing with the Ricardo, because in Ricardo also we assume that ppf was steeper for home foreign as compared to home. So here also our ppf is like this. And the equilibrium or the autarky equilibrium of the foreign country is at E star. Okay, so you have this price line. So this price line is showing you clearly that the py by px in the home country is less than py by px of the foreign country. Okay, so this is the autarky equilibrium. Now the gains from trade, we said what is gains from trade in case of Ricardo, right? In case of Ricardo, we say that gains from trade means the point which you cannot reach without trade. If you can go there with the help of trade, this is your gain. Okay, now look at the first diagram. There are two diagrams, one for home and another for foreign. So if you look at the home country, so EH, this is the autarky equilibrium of the home country, and EH dash, this is the autarky equilibrium of the foreign country. And look, this green line, this is the international terms of trade. Okay, so now there is trade actually. Now there is trade, and after trade, the commodities are exchanged between the countries based on their opportunity cost and all. That is a comparative advantage. And what will happen? Obviously, there is incomplete specialization. It is not Ricardo, remember. So it is incomplete specialization, but incomplete specialization of the home country in favor of commodity X. So commodity X is producing relatively more of X and less of Y, because now his production point is moved from EH to EA like this. Okay, so its production point is moved from here to here. So you can understand more of X is produced and less of Y is produced. So he is going to export X and going to import Y. Okay. Now, given this production point and this, and look at this diagram. This is for foreign. Now, for foreign, what foreign country is doing? Foreign country is producing more of Y and less of X as compared to its autarky. Can you hear me properly? So many sounds are there. Can you hear me properly? Can you hear me properly?
Yes,
Anyone?
ma'am.
Okay. Because so many destructive sounds. Anyway, so for the foreign country, this is the equilibrium production point. This is the production point after trade. There is one speciality that the line, this green price line is the slopes are same, so these are parallel. Okay, the price line for the home country and the price line for the foreign country, these are parallel to each other. Actually, they are same. This line is showing the international terms of trade. That's why they are same. So these are parallel. They should be parallel to each other. Okay. Now, given this change in the production pattern and given the new international terms of trade, your consumption is moved from EH to EH dash. Now, again, without trade, you cannot go to EH dash because it is above the PPF. But through trade, you can move there. So, this is why the movement from EH to EH dash is called gains from trade for the home country. And similarly, here also the same thing, EF dash cannot be achieved without trade because it is above the PPF of the foreign country. So for the foreign country as well, as he is moving from EF to EF dash, so this is the gains from trade for the foreign country. So what we can see that after trade, both countries are gaining. Okay, both countries are gaining. They may be small, there may be large country, whatever it is. But after the exchange process, both countries are gaining, and this is called gains from trade. Now, from gains from trade, we are going to get a new thing, that is the trade triangle. Okay, this is something new. Trade triangle. Now, what is trade triangle? Now, look. This is your just concentrate on the home country. Yeah. So this is the PPF of the home country. This is actually there is no name, but this is the autarky equilibrium. And after trade, the production point has shifted from this autarky equilibrium to C, and the consumption point has shifted from this autarky equilibrium to A. Okay. Now look, if you will draw the line, if you will draw the line, this is your production of X before trade. And after trade, what happened? After trade, this is your production of X. So definitely production of X has increased. Out of this increased X, what is your consumption? A. Right? So from A, if you drop the line, look, if you drop the line, that means you will just continue this line and this. So this is your production point. This is your production point of X and this is your consumption point of X. So you can understand production is more than consumption. So what to do with the extra production? You can give me the answer. This is the production point. This is the consumption point. So production is greater than consumption. So what the country will do with the extra production? This is the extra amount of production. What the country can do with the extra production? Any idea?
Ma'am, export.
Yes. So as there is no demand for this extra production in its own country, he is going to export it. So the amount of export is BC. This point is B. Okay. So the amount of production, amount of export of X by home country is BC. Okay. Similarly, now look at the Y country. For Y country, after the trade, the production is here, right? After the trade, this is your production of Y. Hmm. And this is your consumption of Y after trade. So look at the gap. This is your consumption point. This is your consumption point and this is your production point. So you are not producing sufficient of for your consumption. So your demand is more than supply. Then what you should do? As your demand is more than your supply, then what should you do? You have to
Ma'am,
you have
import.
Yes, you have to import because your domestic economy cannot supply that much. So you have to go for import. So what is the amount of import? The amount of import is AB. Okay, this is parallel to this. So this is AB. So look, here we are getting a triangle. here we are getting a triangle ABC, right? Now, of this triangle BC, this side is giving you the amount of export, and AB, this side is giving you the amount of import. So we are getting a triangle. Out of the three sides of the triangle, one side is informing us about the export, another side is informing us about the import. So that is why this triangle is called trade triangle. Okay, that is why this triangle is called a trade triangle. So if you have the trade triangle, you can understand how much the country is exporting and how much the country is importing. This is the uh, uh, property or the feature of the trade triangle. Okay, is it okay? Is
Yes,
it
ma'am.
okay?
Ma'am, one question.
Yes.
Ma'am, what if AB is greater than BC or BC is greater than
It is
AB?
possible, no issue. It's possible. Actually, it depends on the position of your consumption and production point. It is quite possible that AB is smaller than BC. Quite possible, no issue. That means you are going to import more than your export. But again, here you can understand, okay, ma'am, if you may be confused that if my import is more than my export, that means my expenditure is more than my income, right? So here, how can I manage it? Look, it depends on the price of the commodity. Here, the exchange rate matters. Here, the value of the foreign currency is important. So this is how you can um, you can compare the value of amount of export and the value of amount of import, but ultimately this should be same. Okay, the total amount of import may be high, but the price of import may be very low. That is why the total expenditure for import is equal to the total income from export. That may possible, or you may get just like this. You may get the trade triangle. It depends on your production and consumption point, the gap between the production point and the consumption point. You may get your trade triangle like this, quite natural. Or
So,
you
ma'am,
may get your trade triangle like this. Ha, bolo?
are we measuring the quantity along the axis,
Yes,
along the x and y?
quantity. Yes, absolute quantity, amount of export, amount of import, that much.
Okay, ma'am.
Hmm. Not the value. Okay. For value, we need the foreign currency, the price of the commodity, then the exchange rate, then only you can compare. So this type of trade triangle is quite possible. Okay. Now, the next thing, up to this point, if you have any more query, you can ask. Um, okay.
No, ma'am, no problem.
Okay. So I'm going to. Actually, there is another part of the gains from trade, that is the yes, standard trade model and the trade triangle. Okay, so here we are going to, this is the trade triangle I have already discussed you. Now look, this is the decomposition of the gains from trade. This is also important for us. So first of all, the trade triangle, we have discussed it, and here it is drawn a bit neatly, that much. But uh, this is also important, that how you can decompose the gains from trade into two parts. There are actually two parts of gains from two components of gains from trade. The first one is the exchange gain, and the second one is the specialization gain. Okay, so how you can get it? Hmm. So look, this is very similar to the price effect is equal to income effect and substitution effect. If you can remember those parts, that is price effect is equal to income effect and substitution effect. So it's very similar to that. Okay. So gains from trade is actually a sort of price effect. Huh? An exchange gain and specialization gain, these are the income effect and the substitution effect. Look how you are doing this. First of all, your autarky equilibrium is at E. Again, this is for the home country. The autarky equilibrium is at E. After trade, your production point is P, consumption point is E double dash. Okay, so the gains from trade is the movement from E to E double dash. Remember, the gains from trade is the movement from E to E double dash because we are measuring the gains in terms of the utility. So that is why the movement from E to E double dash is the gains from trade. Fine. Now we are trying to decompose these gains from trade into exchange and specialization gain. Okay. To do that, what we are doing, this is the international terms of trade. We know the line which is passing through E double dash and P. This is the international terms of trade. Draw a line which is parallel to the international terms of trade through E, that is the autarky. Okay, the autarky equilibrium. Draw a price line that means the same price through your autarky. And if you draw it, then you can understand that you can move. You can move to E dash. Now, what is the significance from the movement of E to E dash? What is the significance of this movement? Look, your production point is fixed, right? If you compare, just forget about E double dash. If you compare E and E dash, E is the autarky equilibrium and E dash is the consumption point with international terms of trade. Okay, so look here, the production point is same for both the consumption point E and E dash. Your production point is same as E. You are not changing your production pattern. Production pattern is same as your of your autarky. What you have done, you have just changed the price. Okay, so given your production point, if you increase, if you change the price and you are facing the international terms of trade, then you can move to E dash. Okay, so production point is same. Remember, production point is same as autarky production point. But as you are facing some new price ratio, so you are shifting from E to E dash. So this is called exchange gain. Okay, so you are just exchanging, you are just changing the component of your consumption. Okay, the production point is fixed at your autarky terms of trade or autarky production point. Okay, so E to E dash, this movement is called the exchange gain. Now forget about E, compare E dash and E double dash. Okay, so look, these two lines are parallel, the price lines are parallel. So there is no change in the relative price, but still you are moving from E dash to E double dash. Why? Because you have changed your production pattern from E to P. So this movement from E dash to E double dash is because of your change of production point from E to P. That is, you are going to specialize. Okay, you are going to specialize for the commodity where you have some advantage. Okay, here it is the opportunity cost. So the movement from E dash to E double dash is called the specialization gain. Okay, so E to E dash is the exchange gain, and E dash to E double dash, this is the specialization gain. So the gains from trade, that is E double dash, you can write it E double dash is equal to E dash plus E dash E double dash. It's very similar to our price discussion, price effect discussion. Okay, so the gains from trade is equal to exchange gain plus specialization gain. Do you get the point?
Yes, ma'am.
Just look at this diagram and uh, I'm going to take 1 minute break, huh? Then I will come back. Yes. So now tell me your problem from this up to this point. Up to this point, if you have any problem, make yourself clear, because then after I'm going to start Hicks-Shirley model. Huh? The third bullet of unit 2. So make yourself clear up to the standard trade model. If you have any problem from the standard trade model, you can ask me. Otherwise, I will go for the next model, that is the Hicks-Shirley model. I think you don't have any problem. So without wasting more time, let me go to the next one. Yes, this is our third model. Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So Hexagon model. Look, the name is showing there are two economists who made this model. Hexagon model. This is another part. And when we discussed about the reasons behind the trade, so there we said basically there are three reasons behind the trade. The first reason is the demand bias, and which is unfortunately not in our syllabus. The second one is the technological difference, and based on that, we have our Ricardian model. And this is the third one. This is based on another reason of the trade, and the reason is the the reason is the factor availability. Okay, so the Hicks-Shirley model is basically deals with the idea of factor availability. So Hicks-Shirley model is, first of all, this is more advanced with respect to Ricardo. So many realistic situations you can explain with the Hicks-Shirley model. And Hicks-Shirley model is always basically going for the incomplete specialization. Okay, that was the problem of the Ricardo. Ricardo, basically, there are two most important problems of Ricardo. The first problem is Ricardo is always going for the complete specialization. But after trade, you have to produce either of the commodities, right? But this is not the reality. In reality, you can see the economy can export one commodity and is producing so many commodities other than exportable commodities, right? So Ricardo is not allowing that. So this is another problem in reality. The second problem of Ricardo is that in case of Ricardo, we assume there are only one factor of production, that is labor. Okay, but again, labor is, you can understand, labor is, it is not possible to use only labor to produce the commodity. We need so many other factors to produce the commodity, right? So Hexaroline is also uh, advance in with respect to this. Okay, so this is actually the advancement of the Ricardian model. Okay, so Hexaroline model is assumed no. There are two factors of production, labor and capital, and there is incomplete specialization of the economies after the trade. So basically, these are the two advancements we will get in case of Hexaroline model as compared to the Ricardian model. Sometimes you are calling Hexaroline model as HO model in short. Hexaroline, the names are, you can see the names are so many, maybe complicated. So this is why in short we are calling them HO model. So these are the this is the definition of the HO model. At first read it. I'm giving you the time. Read, there are two sentences. Read it carefully. Okay. Let me read it now. A country should produce more and export the look. Country should produce more. Huh? The country should produce more and export the commodity which is using its abundant factor more intensively. Very confusing, a very complicated sentence, but actually very easy. Look, country should produce more and export that commodity which is using its abundant factor more intensively. So there are two new words here. The first one is abundant, and the third one is intensively. Hmm. So abundant means what? Abundant means a lot of the factor available. Okay. Say as Hexerolin assumes that I'm just giving you the example. Hmm. Okay, that is also written here. A labor abundant country should export labor intensive, and a capital abundant country should produce capital intensive commodity and export it. Hmm. So, for example, generally India is considered as a labor abundant country, right? A lot of labor is available, mostly unskilled. Obviously, skilled labors are also available. A lot of labor, always the labor market, the labor pool is a huge one. So, according to Hexerolin, a labor abundant country, that is India, should produce more of labor intensive commodity. Now, what is intensive? To produce a commodity, you need two factors, labor and capital. Right? Say 50% of labor, 50% of capital. You need to produce a certain commodity. There is another commodity considered, the commodity which is using 70% of labor and 30% of capital to produce one unit of the commodity. You need that. So this commodity is called as labor intensive because it is using intensively more labor, 70% of labor and 30% of capital. Okay. So intensively more labor is used there. So this commodity is called labor intensive. Okay. Similarly, you can consider, say, Japan, or America. There is a lot of capital, so the country should produce capital intensive commodity. That means the commodity who are intensively using. That means relatively using more of capital as compared to labor, Hmm. and they will produce them more and more and will export them. Okay, so this is all about the Heckscher-Ohlin theorem. Okay, a country which is labor abundant should produce and export labor intensive commodity. A country which is capital abundant should produce and export labor intensive commodity. Fine. So any problem from this thing? Look here, the production, export, everything is depending on the abundant, the factor which is abundant in your country. Your production and export is depending on that. Right? So tell me if you have any problem with this definition.
Ma'am, what if both are equally intensive?
That means 50-50. In for that
Yes.
commodity, the country should be indifferent. He can produce it, he cannot produce it. It is his own decision. Okay, whether that country, obviously the country can produce it, but whether it will be exported by the country or not, it is own decision. So we are not certain about that. If the commodity is using 50-50 of labor and capital, then whether that will be exported by the country or not, we are not certain about that according to HO model.
Okay, ma'am.
You can explain it with the help of some other structure, okay, other model. But HO model cannot give you the explanation. So any problem from this definition? We are going to explain this definition, okay, because we are going to discuss the model. So before that, just make yourself clear about the definition. Okay, now look. Now I am going to do the discussion in details. First of all, factor intensity. As I said in the definition, there are two new words, abundance and the intensive. So we are going to discuss one by one. First of all, what is factor intensity? Hmm. Look, if try to understand it, there are two commodities X and Y. Fine. If K by L of X is less than K by L of Y, that means to produce X, capital labor ratio is less than the capital labor ratio required to produce Y. Okay, then the commodity X is assumed as labor intensive because it is using, actually if you make it inverse, then you can understand L by K for X is greater than L by K for Y. So relatively more labor is used to produce X as compared to Y. Hmm. So in that case, commodity X is assumed as the labor intensive and commodity Y is assumed as the capital intensive for a given W by R, obviously, which rental ratio is constant. Okay, so your problem from this thing, factor intensity, I'm going to explain this part, but just before that, your problem from this thing, factor intensity,
No, ma'am, no
this
problem.
is factor intensity of the commodity. Try to understand factor intensity of the commodity, factor abundance of the country. Okay, factor intensity always for the commodity, and factor abundance is always for the economy or for the country. Hmm. Now look, as I said, k by L of x, k by L of y. So I'm writing here like this thing I have written here. So then what I have done, I've just divided the left hand side by x and the right hand side by y. That I can do because x will cancel out, y will cancel out. Now k by x, what is the name of that? K by x. That means the average number of capital required to produce 1 unit of x. You know? K by x, total amount of k capital used for x and total amount of x produced. So k by x is nothing but unit labor requirement, sorry, unit capital requirement. This is k. So unit capital requirement for x production. Hmm? Per unit of x, how many capital you need? Okay, and the denominator is per unit of x, how many labor you need. So the numerator is AKX. This K thing is something new for us because we are discussing with L because it was the Ricardo. But now it is Escherolin. So AKX is the unit capital required for X production. ALX is the unit labor required for X production. And here AKY by ALY for Y, right? Now if you just inverse it, then it will be ALX by AKX is greater than ALY by AKY. So if we assume commodity X as labor intensive, then this inequality is true. Hmm. Amount relatively more labor, very simple, relatively more labor is used for X production. Okay. So this is the mathematical formation of what I have said just now. Relatively more labor is used for X production. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is the factor intensity. This is how Heckscher-Ohlin model is using factor intensity concept. Okay. Now the factor abundance. Factor abundance, as I said, factor abundance is for the country. Okay, it is not related with the commodity. Factor abundance. Country, we are saying that India is labor abundant country. America is capital abundant country. So with respect to country. Now to explain the factor abundance, there are two types of definition. You can explain factor abundance with the help of price definition. You can explain factor abundance with the help of physical definition. Huh? And we will use both to explain the HO model. Okay. Now, what is the price definition? According to the price definition, factor abundance is expressed in terms of price of the factors. Now, look, if country A is assumed as, that is what we will assume. Huh? Country A is assumed as labor abundant and country B as capital abundant. So, if look, in India, if more labor, relatively more labor is available, that means price of labor is relatively low. Very simple. If supply is high, then price will fall. So price of labor in the labor abundant economy is relatively less. Okay? And this is what it is written. W by R of country A is less than W by R of country B. Because for country A is assumed as labor abundant and country B is assumed as capital abundant. Do you get the point?
Yes, ma'am.
Just look at the price definition and make yourself clear. Just look at the price definition and make yourself clear. Then we will go for the physical definition. So W by R of country A is less than W by R of country B because we assume country A as labor abundant country. Country A as labor abundant country. So labor is cheaper there. A lot of labor is available. Now look at the physical definition. Physical definition is always in terms of the number or the amount of factors. It is not in terms of price. So you can understand just opposite. If country A is assumed as labor abundant, then L by K of country A is greater than L by K of country B. L is the amount of labor available, K is the amount of capital available of country A, and this side for country B. So physical definition is always in terms of the quantity of factor available. Okay? And price definition is in terms of the price of the factors. Okay? So these are the two definitions you can use. Okay, just a minute. Yes. So these are the two definitions you can use to explain factor abundance. Hmm? So we need these two things, factor intensity and factor abundance, to explain HO model. That is why we are discussing a lot about this. Factor intensity and factor abundance. Okay. So up to this point, is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else? Is it clear to all? Anyone in this class, if you are having any problem, please ask. Okay, so these are the assumptions of the HO model. The first assumption, countries are different in terms of their factor abundance. So if we assume country A as labor abundant, then we have to assume country B as a capital abundant country. Second one, unambiguously commodities are ranked in terms of factor intensity. That means if we assume X as labor intensive, then throughout our discussion, X will be labor intensive. And if we assume Y as a capital intensive, that means Y is capital intensive for any part of our discussion. Okay. Look, there is no factor intensity reversal. It is factor intensity reversal. Factor intensity reversal means sometimes it is seen that a commodity at the initial level of production is labor intensive. And when you are going to produce the commodity for the mass scale, then it will be capital intensive. Hmm. And this is quite common. This is quite common. Initially, it is labor intensive, and then you need a skilled type of labor to produce them. But when we are going to produce for the mass scale, then you need a large factory, a lot of machines, and all to produce it. So then the commodity is converted to the capital intensive one. So this is called factor intensity reversal. This is realistic. Okay, but We will consider, obviously we will consider this situation also in HO model, but for the time being we are assuming no, there is no factor intensity reversal. When we can understand the HO model clearly, then we relax this assumption and we will go for this reversal situation and we'll check whether HO model is true there or not. But for the time being, okay, there is no such situation. Hmm. Now look at the third one. There is CRS production function. So CRS means constant returns to scale. So average product and marginal product of the factors are the functions of K by L. This is the property of the CRS production function. Average product and marginal product, these are the only function of K by L. Okay. So as we need AP and AP and MP to be the function of K by L, so we assume it as a CRS production function. The production function is identical among the countries, so there is no technological difference. Look, here comes. Here we are eliminating the possibility of Ricardo. In case of Ricardo, that is the reason behind the trade, technological difference. But here we are assuming no technological difference, so there is no scope of Ricardo here. Ricardo cannot come here. Okay. Now the next one, preference is homothetic and identical between the countries. So demand is also not important here for the pattern of trade. Okay, demand cannot explain the pattern of trade. Next one, perfect competition prevails. So there is full utilization of resources and Pareto optimality is attained. So resources are fully utilized and so Pareto optimality is there. As perfect competition means Pareto optimality is always there. So Pareto optimality is there. Welfare is not an issue. Now resources are fully mobile between the sectors within a country but internationally immobile, remember. Within the sectors, that means if country A is producing X and Y, labor and capital can freely move from X sector to Y sector within country A, but they cannot go from country A to country B. Okay, and this assumption was there in Ricardo as well. Factors cannot move between the countries, but within sector it is possible. Now there is no transport cost, so there is free. That means there is free trade. That means there is no export expenditure or import expenditure. As actually what happened, it, transport cost is significant part of trade. Hmm. When you are going to export something, when you are going to import something, transport cost is always there because you are going to take it or you are going to give it to some other country. It is not just outside of your home. Okay, so many costs are there, but just for simplicity we assume no, there is no such cost. And other than this transport cost, you have to pay tax also. Sometimes government is imposing tax on import, government is imposing tax on export as well. So these things are also eliminated by this assumption. It's a free trade, no intervention is there. Okay. So these are the assumptions of the HO model. Just tell me your problem from there. Any problem? Look at them carefully. If you have any problem, please ask.
Ma'am,
Hmm?
Anna is late. labor intensive or capital intensive?
Yes. Ooh, it is not clear to you.
No, ma'am. I am asking that China is labor intensive or capital intensive?
Oh. China is capitalist economy, capital intensive actually. A lot of labor is there, true, but as compared to labor, capital is also a lot of availability is lot. So it's actually capital abundant country. And that is why China can produce. Actually, look, um, in short, you cannot explain because the country is using labor at the very cheaper rate. The wage is very insignificant there, basically for the unskilled worker, and that is why they can sell the commodity at cheaper price. The price is very low because they are paying wage at very low level, insignificant wage. So in that sense, it's a labor abundant country. But there is a but. A few peoples are there in this country who are really rich. Hmm. So they have a lot of capital in their hand, power, everything they have, and they are utilizing it to, they're actually suppressing the real fact. They're making pressure on this unskilled worker and force them to work at the lower wage. So as they are so much powerful, as they have lot of money, a lot of capital in their hand, and they are using it, obviously. This is not that should not be the way they are using it, but they are using it. So that is why the reality is it is a capital abundant country, and
Ma'am,
they are
are we
using.
considering
Yes.
ma'am, are we considering labor as capital over in this case?
No, if the labor is a skilled worker, then this labor is considered as a capital, that is a human capital.
Okay,
But
ma'am.
unskilled worker is labor, simple labor. India has a lot of unskilled worker. China also has. But China has a lot of capital as well, and they are utilizing this capital to pressurize those unskilled workers, and by force they have to work at the lower wage. Hmm. As capital is more powerful there as compared to the labor force, so you can say that country as a capital abundant country.
Okay, ma'am.
Any other question?
No, ma'am.
Sure. Anyone else? So let me go to the analysis section. I don't know how much I can cover for today, but let me tell you, obviously, in a one day it is not possible. It's not a one day story. So, analysis. We will follow the price definition first. As I said, factor abundance can be explained in terms of price definition and physical definition. So, we are going for price definition first. After finishing it, we will start from the physical definition. So, according to the price definition, if you assume country A as labor abundant, then W by R of A is less than W by R of B. Look, W by R of A is less than W by R of B. So it is written here. Say price of X by price of Y. Px by Py is rising. Okay. So if it will, then country is interested to produce more of X and less of Y. Definitely, relative price of X is rising. So country is interested to produce more of X and less of Y. So this is what this country is always. Both countries are doing this. Okay. In the market, So now look what happened. Try to understand it. X is assumed as labor intensive one. Okay. And Y is assumed as capital intensive one. This part is very important to explain the HO model. So try to understand one by one. X is assumed as labor intensive and Y is assumed as capital intensive. And in the market, Px by Py is rising. Ah, And that is why the country is trying to produce more of X and less of Y. Okay. Now, when the country is trying to produce more of X, relatively more labor is required to produce X because X is assumed as labor intensive one, right? So as the country is trying to produce more and more of X, the demand for labor is rising relatively. Okay. On the other hand, as the country is trying to reduce its XY production, so in the market, and Y is assumed as a capital intensive one, and country is going to reduce Y production, right? So a lot of capital is available in the market now. So there is excess supply of capital and excess demand for labor. Up to this point, is it okay? Excess demand for labor, excess supply of capital. Up to this point, is it okay? If Px by Py is rising, remember, if Px by Py is rising, then it will be the situation. Up to this point, is it okay? Take your time and think. Only up to this point. Only up to this point, not after that.
Can you explain again the last part?
Yes. Excess, look what the country will do. If this is the situation, the country is trying to produce more of X. And X is assumed as labor intensive. So more and more labor is demanded in the economy. So there will be excess demand for labor. And on the contrary, country is trying to reduce Y production. So when Y production is reduced, some amount of labor and some amount of capitals are released from there, right? But relatively more amount of capital is released from Y sector and which is not engaged in X sector because X is labor intensive. So when you are going to reduce Y production, whatever amount of labor is released from Y sector, they can get their job in X sector because X production is rising now and it is labor intensive. So the labor coming from Y sector is getting job easily in the X sector. But the capital which is released from Y sector, that much of capital is not needed for X production. Because Y is capital intensive. A lot of capital is released from Y when you are reducing Y production. Okay. That much of capital is not getting job in the X sector. Okay. So what happened in the market? In the market, there will be excess demand for capital labor and excess supply of capital. Okay. Now again, take your time and think.
Understood now.
Others, please try to understand. Give me 1 minute. Huh? Take your time. Give me 1 minute. I'm coming back. Yes. So here we are. Mhm. Yes. How many of you have any problem here? You can tell me. I cannot see the chat box. Please don't write anything there. Tell me verbally. I want to listen. Acha. So I don't think there is any problem. If you have any problem, just ask. Stop me and ask. Huh? So as I said, there is excess demand for labor and excess supply of capital. So K by L rises in both the sectors. Hmm. Now look what happened. There is excess demand for labor and excess supply of capital. Now, as there is lot of capital available in the market as compared to labor, so both sectors are trying to employ more and more capital because now capital is cheaper. You can understand. As capital is becoming cheaper, so producers are interested to employ more capital. Hmm. And as more capital is employed, then MPK is falling. On the other hand, as there is excess demand for labor, so wage is rising. So producers are not interested to employ labor. So labor employment is falling, and for that MPL is rising. So what is the net effect? MPL is rising and MPK is falling. Up to this point, is it okay? MPL is rising and MPK is falling. Any problem? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So up to this point, any problem? Up to this point,
No,
only
ma'am.
up to this point. Okay. Now, real wage is equal to MPL. That we know. That real wage, that is W by R, that, sorry, W by P is equal to MPL. Now, W is equal to VMPL. If you can remember, W is equal to VMPL. That is W is equal to P into MPL. So, if you take P to the left hand side, then it will be W by P is equal to MPL. And W by P is your real wage. So real wage is rising because real wage is equal to the MPL and MPL is rising. So the real wage is rising and the real rental will fall. Okay. Now, if real wage is rising, okay, look at this line and make yourself clear about this sentence. Real wage is rising and real rental is falling. Up to this point, make yourself clear why real wage is rising and why real rental is falling. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
No. So real wage is rising. Huh? So what is real wage? W by PX, and this is rising. So that means W is rising more than PX. And similarly, as real rental is falling, so that is um, R by Px and obviously R by Py also. So R is falling relatively more than Px and Py. Okay. So W is rising more than Px, R is rising less than Px, or R is falling less than Px. So R by W by R, that will rise. W is rising, R is falling. So W by R is rising. So what happens? We have started with the assumption with Px by Py is rising. And what is the conclusion? W by R is rising. So if Px by Py rises, then W by R will rise. So both are going to the same direction. If X is assumed as labor intensive, remember, if X is assumed as labor intensive, Y is assumed as capital intensive, then Px and Px by Py and W by R, they are positively related. Okay, and this is called one-to-one relationship. One-to-one relationship between Px by Py and W by R. That means both are going to the same direction. If one is rising, another should rise. If one is falling, then second should fall. Hmm. So this is called one-to-one relationship between Px by Py and W by R. We need this relation to explain HO model. Okay, if you can understand this thing na, then HO model is just 2 to 3 lines proof. Nothing is there. So you have to make yourself clear about this relation, because this is all about the HO. If you can understand them, then you can understand HO. Read from first to last. Huh? And anywhere, if you have any query, make yourself clear, because once you can understand this slide, HO model is will be very much clear to you. There is nothing more. Actually, everything is there. If I say you 1 or 2 sentences, you can understand where is HO. HO is here actually, but just make yourself clear.
Can you explain the real wage part again?
Yes. You know the equilibrium condition, W is equal to VMPL, right?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
the W is equal to VMPL. That means W is equal to P into MPL. So if you take P to your left hand side, then it will be W by P is equal to MPL. That P may be PX, that P may be PY. But for any of the prices, W by P is equal to MPL. Hmm. Now you just explained that MPL is rising. So if MPL is rising, then your W by P is rising, right? And if W by P is rising, that means W is rising more than PX. Say we assume now PX by PY is rising. So PX is actually rising. But when PX is rising, W by W is also rising. But W should rise more than PX, then only your W by P should be greater than is rising, right? Then the ratio will rise. So that means W is also rising. That is important for us. W is also rising. Px is rising, we assume it. From the explanation, we see W is rising. So that W by P should rise. Okay. So if W is rising and the W part is okay. Now look at this. MPK is falling. And what is MPK? MPK is equal to, again, that V is equal to MPL. So R by P is equal to MPK. So if MPK is falling, R by P is falling, that is real rental is falling. Okay. Now PX by PY is rising, so you can say PY is falling actually. Okay, relatively PY is falling. So, but R by PY is falling. Py is falling, R by Py is falling, that means R is falling more than Py falls. Okay. So what happens? Your absolute W that is rising, your absolute R that is falling. So W by R that should rise. W is rising, R is falling. The W by R should rise. The ratio is rising. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
So if W by R is rising, now look at the second line and look at here. So Px by Py rising means W by R rising. But remember one thing, this is true only if Px, that is X, is assumed as labor intensive. Huh? So there is one-to-one relationship between this and this. Px by Py and W by R. Now look. As I said, if you can understand up to this point, then HO model is just 2 to 3 lines. Look, as I assumed country A as the labor abundant country, so this inequality is true. W by R of A is less than W by R of B. This is true. And if this is true, and we know there is one-to-one relationship between Px by Py and W by R, so you can just replace this W by R by Px by Py to do it. What you will get? Px by Py of country A is less than Px by Py of country B, right? If this is true, this is actually our assumption that country A is assumed as labor abundant country, then this is true. Now, if so, I have converted it in terms of price of the commodity. So, if Px by Py of country A is less than Px by Py of country B, then tell me what will be the pattern of trade. Country A should produce which commodity more? Look at this and tell me. Look at this and tell me. If this is true, if this inequality is true, then country A will produce which commodity more?
Ma'am, X.
Hmm. Country A, yes, the relative price of X is less there. So country A is producing X and will export it. Similarly, country B will produce commodity Y and export it. Now look, we assume country A as labor abundant and we assume commodity X as labor intensive. So what we are getting? If country A is labor abundant, then country A is producing more of labor intensive commodity and will export it. So this is nothing but our HO model. Okay. So HO model is proved in this way. So everything is here. Everything is here. If you can come to this one-to-one relationship, then this is only your HO model. Now take your time and think. You can explain, okay, I can explain HO model mathematically, diagrammatically, and I will do that. But this is logically. This is the logical proof of the HO model. Actually, HO model is very short in that sense, but the implication are very, very significant. So many byproducts are coming out from this model. So these are very important. HO model is here and we have done it. But so many wings will come out from this HO model, and these are very much important in the real life. The application, I should say, the application of the HO model. So that we will do. But I am not interested to explain the mathematical portion today because it's a long one, and as we have done 50% of the class today. So now if I am discussing this mathematical portion, no one can understand it. Huh. So in that sense, I will stop here, no issue. I will stop here. But before that, make yourself clear. I'm not going to discuss anything new now.
I'm an exam. What type of questions can we expect
Which one? Tell me again.
in exam? What type of questions can we expect from this part?
Proof HO model, proof HO theorem. Up to this part, you can explain. You can expect this question. As I said, there are so many other things which are very important. So from there, you will expect a lot of questions. But as we have not discussed all those things up to this point, you can expect that part. First of all, the if the question is explain HO theorem, sometimes these questions are there. So depending on the marks, you have to introduce the assumption or only that logical part or logical and mathematical. So everything is based on the full marks. If the marks is very small, then only go for the logical one. If it's a bit more, then explain the assumption and this logical. If it is a large question, long question, then go for assumption, this logical analysis, and the mathematical derivation as well. Mathematics is coming at the end. So prove HO theorem, explain HO theorem. This is very common question. As no one is asking any question, I am just
Ma'am,
stop this.
ma'am,
Yes,
my Google Meet wasn't responding. That's why I missed the attendance. Ma'am, can I give the attendance now to Rohan?
attendance.
Yes, ma'am.
No, once I stop taking attendance, I am not interested to give attendance again. Huh? Be
Ma'am, I
present
was
in
10
time,
minutes
please.
late because my Google Meet wasn't responding.
Yes, but no, there are so many students who are not left. What can I do? Tell me. Give your
Ma'am,
attendance in the next class. One class is not so important.
okay, ma'am.